A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
How far can you run? Well, I have some friends, even here at Vision, who fancy themselves as distance runners. There are, of course, runners who run half marathons and full marathons. There might even be the occasional ultra marathon. But now, how does this one sound to you? The Backyard Ultra Marathon. Well, mostly when we think about running a race, you might assume there's a finish line, and first over the line is the winner. Well, our next guest is a champion of a different sort of race, one where there is no official finish. It's a race where the competitors run indefinitely until they drop. Stephen Parker is a runner, and he's about to release a brand new book. It's called There Is No Finish, The Backyard Ultra Story. Stephen, a special welcome along to 2020.
Oh, thanks very much, Neil. Pleasure to be here.
Stephen, where does this concept come from? The Backyard Ultra. We're used to backyard cricket. Now we've got Backyard Ultra running.
Yeah, so it actually began fairly recently, back in 2011, in Tennessee, of all places. A guy who calls himself Lazarus Lake began the race in his own literal backyard. He set up he called it a 4.1 mile course that made runners run around this lap to see how far they could go. And it's just spread like wildfire ever since then.
Now, just getting the concept on how this works, you've got to just pause and think carefully, because in 1 hour you get to complete almost, or just a little more than 6.7 kilometres. And how does this work as it goes on and on without a finish?
Yeah. So it is a bit of a weird concept, to be honest. So you've got the 6.7 kilometres. Let's say the race starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Everyone starts together at the same start line, and then they do a 6.7 kilometre lap. If it takes 40 minutes, you've then got 20 minutes to rest. So people go into some shade, they sit down, have a bit of food, have a bit of a drink. Then with 3 minutes before the next hour, 3 whistles blow. Then at 2 minutes to go, 2 whistles blow, 1 minute, 1 whistle. And then everyone races to the same start line again, and they do another 6.7 kilometre lap. So the first one's really easy. The second one, you go, now I've done 13 kilometres. This is a little bit harder. And then it just keeps on going on. And as you said, there is no finish. It only stops when the second last person stops.
So the winner is the last one standing. So when we're talking about ultra marathon running or backyard ultras, this really is a test of endurance.
Yeah, definitely. You've got no idea when you're going to start, how far you're actually going to go. Like, you might look around and think, oh, they look good. But you don't know what other people are going to do. And it's what they do that'll determine how far you get to go yourself.
Now, what is unique about this whole way that the event can run is that you can have a championship running here in Australia, and there could be championships running at the same time around the world. How does that work?
Yeah, that's right. So in fact, in October this year, they're going to have what's called the World Team Championships. And so there'll be 15 people in Western Australia doing the Australian National Championship, but I think they're up to 68 countries right now. So in another 67 countries, there'll be 15-person races in all those nations doing their own championships, and they will all start every single hour at exactly the same time. So in Western Australia, they'll start at 9 o'clock. In Tennessee, I think it'll be 7 a.m. In New Zealand, they're starting at 1 a.m. for their time to get all the times in sync. And then there'll be feeds for each of those venues all coming into the same sets of websites, so people will be following all 68 of those events to see who wins.
I imagine that the terrain could be different in different settings, although you could be doing this running around a track too, couldn't you, and have it equal for everyone?
Yeah, that's right. So they're all either on path or out in the bush. No one's used just like a 400-metre running track yet, but there is a massive difference. So the American trail is one of the hardest ones. In Mexico, they run up and down canyons, which are really quite steep, which is just ridiculously hard. But the flatter you can do it, the easier it is. So this year the Australian team's gone for a fairly flat surface to try and make it a bit easier.
Put you on the spot here. What's your fastest time in an hour-long block, and how many hours have you done in your backyard ultra running?
Yeah, so I think the fastest ones I've done have been about 39 minutes. But you never actually want to go too fast because then you've got longer to rest in between. So you don't want your legs getting too cold. You don't want to cool down too much. And the furthest I've done is just a few weeks ago, actually, I did 24 hours, which was a goal I've had for a while. And it was it was exhilarating to finally get there after a few years of trying.
Well, could this sort of backyard marathon running, do you think, ever become an Olympic event?
Funnily enough, I was actually talking to some people about that fairly recently. They said you could just have another channel on television, and when the Olympics starts, you could start one of these races, and it might go for the first week of the Olympics, the entire time. You could tune in and watch what's happening because there's always something fascinating. So for most of these World Championships events, they do have a literal 24-hour, 4 or 5 day feed that's going, and there's always thousands of people tuning in watching it. It's not going to happen at the Olympics, but I think it'll be fun.
Hey, but it's nice to speculate.
Yeah.
You know, the book is called There Is No Finish, The Backyard Ultra Story. Now, it's not necessarily a Christian book which inspires people's faith, but you're a Christian, and it's a book that is a Christian's book. Faith does pop up from time to time, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. I guess because I'm a Christian, it occasionally just seeps out of whatever I'm doing. So I mentioned a few times in there that about me or several other runners just praying at various times in the races, which just makes sense. Some of the runners, their faith becomes part of the story that comes out a little bit. The first one I did, I was actually desperately hoping to run through the night and be still running at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, because it started at 9 o'clock Saturday morning, so that then I could watch my church's service on my phone while running along. I just thought that'd be really fun to participate in church while still running.
And you yourself, you work for a Christian organisation, and you've been doing that for many, many years now.
Yeah, almost 19 years now. I've been working for the Australian College of Ministries, lots and lots of fun.
And so far as the backyard ultras have spread, as I understand it, there's races in Belgium and in the USA, here in Australia, Sweden, Canada, Finland, South Africa, Pakistan, a whole lot more. No doubt this is catching on like wildfire.
Yeah, the growth has just been amazing. It's been quite explosive. They're some of the cheapest events that you can run, and you don't need much space. A lot of ultramarathons need literally 100 kilometres or 100 miles of space that's all safe. This just needs 6 kilometres.
And the origin of your book, while we're on faith issues, you were watching a global leadership summit and took some inspiration from one of the speakers. Yeah,
it was just one of those bizarre experiences that I only give credit to God for it. I can remember I was at Springwood Church of Christ, my home church. We were participating in a local version of the Global Leadership Summit, which I love. I've been going to for every year for decades. And the first speaker was James Clear. He'd written a book called Atomic Habits. And for the life of me, I can't remember what he said. But he said something that just suddenly made me think about the idea of writing this book. It wasn't something I'd planned before, but I just suddenly started thinking, I don't think anyone's written about this topic before. And there are so many amazing stories that there'd have to be a great book there. And I thought, if no one else has started writing a book, I could do it. I've written one book before, and I think this brings together some of my great loves, running and telling stories. I thought this could actually work. And so then I stopped listening to whatever he was talking about, and then I started scribbling down ideas. And then they got to the end of the session. Oh, it might have been the speech after that. And then our pastor actually said, okay, I'm sure that God's been talking to you guys fairly deeply. There's some really big issues that were raised there. Can you spend a few minutes praying about what God's been laying on your heart? And I must admit, I felt really guilty because I hadn't listened to anything that had been happening there at all. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to pray about right now except this brand new idea. And I don't know if this idea is from God or... So I just prayed about it. Oh, and then he also said, after you finish praying, can you talk at your table about the ideas that came up in the session? And I thought, I'm not going to say anything about this silly book idea because I think that's distracting from the deep spiritual stuff that was happening at the table. But then when it was time to talk, no one else said anything. They were all just, you know that times in a group when just everyone's waiting for someone else to say something. I thought, oh well, let me share you my crazy idea. I've been thinking I could write this book, but I'd have to write to that Lazarus Lake guy, the founder of it, to see if if someone else happens to be writing it already, there'd be no point. But if I could get his blessing and find out that no one else was doing it, then maybe it could work. And everyone was really quite encouraging, and so.
And there's now a triumph because your book is about to be released, and it's going to have a readership of people who are interested in running. And there's a lot of stories you can tell because as this has happened around the world, a whole lot of things have come to light with people clearing snakes off tracks and battling bushfires and cyclones and those sorts of things. Those are the sorts of stories that when you're on one of these backyard ultras, all sorts of stuff's coming to light.
Oh, yeah. Seriously, I think every one of these races that follow, there's been some form of crazy story that's come out of it. And which is what made me think, I think this is the book that could be fun for anyone.
Okay, now the book itself, how do people get a hold of it?
So it'll be available in some independent bookstores. Definitely be available on Amazon. I'm having a launch at Springwood on October the 12th at Springwood Church of Christ. And I've got a website, runningforever.au, where people can just email or order the book there online.
And no doubt there'll be a lot of listeners, and this is a whole new concept. And you're thinking, wow, this is something I could get a hold of and something I might like to do myself. And basically, people in the event, a backyard ultra running indefinitely until they drop, doing repeats of a 6.7 kilometre course at the pace of 1 per hour, and then it's on repeat until there's one person standing. Well, you might want to get a hold of Stephen's book. He's going to be talking about this at the launch, and the book is called There Is No Finish, The Backyard Ultra Story. There's a website where you can find out a little more about Stephen and his book. It's Stephen Parker. He's a runner. The book is called There Is No Finish, The Backyard Ultra Story, and the website is runningforever.au. That's runningforever.au. Stephen Parker, all the best as this book takes off and as your running career continues. Thanks so much for sharing these thoughts with us on 2020 Today.
Thanks very much for your graciousness and your welcome invitation. Keep up the fantastic work you guys are doing.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.